Um, so I want to get on and talk about advertisements and some of the media control that I think, to me, I will look at it and I have a strong feeling that these things are meant to get us into a bad frame of mind and to sort of doubt ourselves. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit from my personal experience with parenting, especially to start off, because my experience with it is more definitive. So, other parents will kind of hint to us or directly be like, hey, research shows that if kids on a device like my son is right now, that, it's going to have all these negative effects at this socialist occupation that I go to sometimes, the squat. One guy was telling me that, my son will be dumber if if he's watching this stuff now. I think some of the stuff is very overstimulating, and certainly I could see how that would be
harmful.
But like one guy two doors down was talking about such things, and but his whole job is computer work. His job is software. So at the very least, he's feeding the beast that he's complaining about. I think this is a big problem, and what's good for the gander is good for the goose. I think if we as adults are using technology a lot, if anything, technology is only acclimating our children to the digital world that they will inevitably be entering. So I don't really have a problem with it. And the other thing is, it's me and my ex. We are taking care of my son completely. Everything he learns, practically, he mostly learns from us. It's not like we have aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa around. And we're kind of special that we're away from such people, but a lot of people have family close and just everyone's too busy. So I think it's okay to lean on technology to fill that gap. But a lot of people are just against technology, and I think subconsciously it's because it's a relic of what we've lost socially because we've become so less social. But I would go so far and say I'm glad that we're less social because now we're not enmeshed into all of each other's drama. We don't feel the need to take care of other people's mistakes and sort of assent to other people's choices. We are all our own persons. It's becoming more and more this way, and that makes me incredibly happy. I don't know how I would have survived if I was born, 30 years ago, 30, 40 years before I was. I don't understand that kind of world. I understand controlling my choices to some extent. We're not. It's not such an egalitarian, open market thing where we can just all make our own choices almost unfettered. But I hope that's coming. Talk of UBI and stuff. But yeah, like my son, so I was just very comfortable and I just let him be on the device. And he's learned many words from it, many concepts he understands from watching TV, and he sees it played out, and he can learn empathy from it. He can see the characters have certain reactions and have some kind of reference for social, for social interactions and reactions and such. And he gets that in Vertex as well, but in our regular life, he wouldn't get that otherwise. It would just be us playing with him, which is very much serving him. I used to try and play with him more directly. Now I more like watch him play. I think that's more positive. I think engaging and intensely playing with him. Usually he would get annoyed with it anyways because he wants to explore and put his imagination into the toys and enjoy that. I remember as a kid also being annoyed when adults would try and play with me too much. You know. Okay, now to turn to things I see in ads, right? One thing I see ads for, and I just see a lot of social media coverage of NoFap, and I think it's just meant to make people feel guilty about their biological desires and the fact that one of the side effects of not being enmeshed into each other's drama so much is that there's less, opportunities to get with someone, type of thing. I mean, you can just go to the bar or whatever and be cool and whatever. But anyways, yeah. This kind of dovetails into spiritual, sort of the spiritual community of like, retaining and whatnot. I would say it's not that spiritual. I would say there's particular spiritual use cases, but for every spiritual practice where that is driven by retaining, there's just as many that are about using. I mean, some of the most powerful quote unquote works of the Thelemites of the Ordo Templi Orientis are performed using one's magic wand. So, to say that it's inherently more spiritual or more empowering of the self to retain is incorrect. It's absolutely incorrect. And so all of this coverage, to speak from my own experience, I retained for a long period of time because I just didn't feel good doing it. And I got to the point of being asexual, which happens to me once in a while, as I go into a flow of that. And it's good. It's nice. I can enjoy it, depending. But what will happen is my life will become very stuck and stagnant. I'll be in my head doing all kinds of ethereal thought loops. Not loops. I am going somewhere. And then what happens is I stop retaining and I release, and then the things I'm thinking about will manifest over the next few years. So it's like an incubation period for me. And it's very powerful. Does the average person have a use case like that? But see, for me, it's magic, right? And how do I actuate the magic with my magic wand? And that's how I get things. By releasing, I start to kick up the manifestation once again. And yeah, so that kind of stuff in my mind is complete nonsense. And I think there's no basis. So anyways, yeah, it's not it's not some kind of spiritual end all be all, just between, just only saving for, being between you and someone else. Also, I would say that releasing too much can be bad, but I think you just have to gauge it. So I think that's something that can be explored experimentally. But when we talk about retention, when we talk about NoFap, it's very much in the realm of the occult. It's very much in the realm of like energy work and things like that. So it may not seem like that on the surface, but by controlling your releases, how often they are, by retaining, you are retaining your life force and controlling its flow. But I think that a lot of the sort of social media coverage is trying to convince you to be a miser with your energies, and that's actually like lack mentality and can have a very rapid lack kind of spiraling domino effect, whatever, in your life. I don't think it's that helpful. So yeah, I even written some posts, and underneath it, even posts that aren't about this sort of thing, people talking about retention. And yeah, it seems to be its own little, its whole little cult, and I don't think it's worth it. It's not a good practice. It's not good to practice retention too much. Like I said, being a miser of one's energies. If it's something that works for someone, if it's something that they can control and make their life better, great, more power to them. But you know, maybe, I will say I have done many of these spiritual practices over past lives, so perhaps I have a somewhat privileged view of it. I mean, I'm privileged now, but I worked for it in previous lives, which is practically all conditions in the life. um, um, maybe some people struggle with, they don't really have control over how much they release, or it's sort of like not being able to control how much you eat, yeah, but self-control is like a really basic thing that's hard to develop. And I think at that point, when we're talking about retention or releasing too much, eating disorders, things like that, there's a lack of control. And if you have a lack of control, you kind of have to consider that differently, because it's not really that much the problem itself. It's more, I think this is another thing, is there's a lot of feel guilty about these things you can't control in your life. Like in US, the way the food is, it just really entices you to overeat, right? And I think it's easy to become delusional and be like, okay, if I spend on more expensive healthy food, that'll be bad for my budget, but then you'll spend more on overeating anyways. So a lot of those things, I think people beat themselves up over the fact they can't beat a weight loss issue or a release issue or something like that. To speak to the other side of it, of sort of the psychology of excess, the psychology of lacking self-control, I think that's a bit of a different thing. And I think that's a battle you have to win inside your own mind. But then there's another element to that too, where like there's some things where some people just are a certain way, and there's just certain things that are going to be their kryptonite. Like for example, Andromedans, or Arcturians such as myself, often struggle with eating disorders, because for one thing, we don't really eat much where we're from. So I know I have to be careful in a way, and I'm very mindful about how I eat. And because I understand that about myself, I don't struggle like I used to. So sometimes just accepting that you have some kind of limitation or some kind of difficulty can make all the difference. Then there's one last one I wanted to mention, and this is I saw a video of this just now, as I was scrolling through shorts, an ad came up. I've just seen the same type thing so many fucking times. I'm really fucking sick of it. High intelligence people that are wasting their potential. We have social media now. If you have a half-baked idea, half-bake it, throw it on the internet. I think there's this old, very much like Taurus idea that you need to use your will, your intelligence, your acumen. You have to develop all these ancillary skills, and you need to build your castle. You need to build your castle to be the strongest thing and hold up your dream, and under it can be other people can be shaded from the hot sun of adversity in the world, or some shit. I don't know. I'm just making shit up. But there's this idea that if you have this, and I've been sort of harassed in this sense a lot. If you have some inspiration, some genius, that is that brilliance in you that some people can see. If you have that, you should work for it, work towards it, and make it into something. And then you should inflate it with your own efforts and everything. And I think some people can do that and have such karma. But I think that's mostly nonsense. It's a delusion where a few can do people put everything together. and the can'ts, just those that are can't do type people would just fall away. You know, we're especially now, we're in this Luciferian age where it's very much about iteration, I believe. It's about, you know, I threw an idea out there half baked, someone else iterates on it, and maybe 1,000 iterations later it becomes something truly beautiful. But someone will see how truly beautiful it is in the first place. And that's the power of social media. This is what I really hate, is this people are stuck in the old age of thinking, but the new age of thinking is here. All of the great dreams that we're looking towards, I think, are mostly already here. They're just not realized completely. They're not expanded completely. Like gig work. Gig work is so big now. Gig work almost is within itself a little bit of a taste of UBI, I think. You know, I remember people would complain so much about Uber. You can make a shit ton of money off Uber, and it's really easy work. If you're not good with people, but see, that's like lack mentality, right? You just have to be you just have to know your boundaries, and you know what I'm trying to say, like. And I think this delusion of the lone wolf who's gonna build his own castle and inflate his own brilliance, and you know, be this bulwark of society within themselves, just make their will manifest, will their will into being. It's needless. It's complete ego tripping. It's complete, you know, it's really nonsense, and it's arrogant. It's petty. It's, you know, it's a low consciousness mentality. Like, everyone needs people. No matter who's a success, they needed help. They needed help in, you know, the formation of the idea. They needed help, you know, because every idea comes from somewhere, and you know, there is some brilliance of something coming from somewhere, but that's like an antenna, and to keep up that brilliance, you really kind of have to be lazy. Like, and I'm talking from a point of view, I opened myself up to the spirits, and I was taught things that were written by Plato, they were written by Plotinus, they're written by in the Urantia book, but I never read any of that. I was just told it by spirits, because they were told it by spirits before I was, you know? And that's all that happened. So this idea that, you know, you can just make a change and decide you're going to be a can-do person, and you're going to do the course with the 5 steps, and then you're going to be that person, and you're going to make something of yourself. That's not really how it works. First of all, brilliance isn't about work. Brilliance is about being open. And that receptivity takes time. You know what I mean? Like, you know, why do you think that software engineers and such in Silicon Valley would be microdosing? It's to be open, you know? And this is something that really bothers me in our culture, that people are completely delusional, have no idea how these things really work. A friend of mine, he kept asking me if his poetry was any good. I said, your poetry is good enough. Most of the fame is exposure anyways. I said, Stephen King, I'm pretty sure I heard about him that he hides under, he used to pay someone to check under his bed because he's so scared of the things that he probably saw in the astral plane or whatever. A lot of people say that H.P. Lovecraft was seeing actual beings. I've seen such beings on the astral plane. You know, I mean, this is what I'm saying. I think we think that someone's just brilliant and just has a totally different perspective. They have a perspective that's existed since the beginning of time, as far as, you know, we're concerned here on Earth. They're just receiving something. Maybe it's the first time it's been received here on Earth, but it's nothing new, really, in the grand scheme of things. And that receptivity is you know, an immense part of how these sorts of things work. Yeah, that's the thing, is a lot of what makes something good is how it's packaged anyways. So, you know, I think if you understand that a lot, like, there's a lot a lot of things are marketing in the world. A lot of things are psychology. So, but someone who's good at psychology probably isn't good at receptivity, because psychology is very mercurial. Mercury is changing one thing into another. Manifesting things is Venus. Manifesting and that brilliance is Venus. So they're different energies entirely. So you're asking people to be Venus and Mercury? Why would you do that? You know what I mean? Like, some small percentage of people maybe have that. Mercury and Venus and the sun all go in pretty much the same. They're always quite close to each other, but why would you do that? Why would you kind of want people to embody such different energies? But even if you don't have to think of it in terms of planets even. It's a different mindset to manifest something and to sort of alchemize it, to transmute it. They're different processes. And to become an expert in one is, that's a specialization. So this is where we always need other people and always need to be in association with others. And I think the answer to a lot of this is just social media. I also think we're coming into a time where no one is going to really own ideas, or people aren't going to really own things in general. There's just going to be the output of it. I think we might even get to a point where we don't have paid jobs anymore, or we have a lot less of them, or something like that. Or maybe just very bizarre payment structures will come about. I could see gig work expanding to the point where, if there's a million little facets, every job is broken, every information-based job is broken down into a million different pieces, and a million different people get paid some little parcel. I mean, the technology is good enough to do it, so I could see something like that happening. But yeah, we're really in the age where this thing of the lone wolf success story is just, some people can do it. Some people can get out there and do it. And the world is becoming a more, probable, possible place where you can be something if you really want to. But I think a lot of people are going to chase someone else's dream because they saw it on an ad. I have friends like this, or one friend especially I'm thinking of. But I've seen it too many times, how an ad or something like that, this really deeply affects someone's thinking. And it's that's someone else's dream. Why do you want to live someone else's dream? Why do you want to watch someone else's video and say, yes, this is how the world works? Forget about it. Just find your own way. You have to search into your own self and see your own perspective, or go on a spiritual journey and find what you can receive, and find your own teachers, understand your own teachers. Don't just take something as your teacher that's just an ad. You know what I mean? Control your own consciousness. That's something everyone can do and should do, and that's the spiritual path. That's the path of awakening. So anyways,